Chapter 15. Ma and Ba sat in front of a small fire that Ba had built. Their disappointment at not having found Minli forced them to admit their exhaustion, and they had slept under the canopy of tree branches during the day, leaving their silver goldfish as a guardian. By the time they had wakened, it was late afternoon, but neither of them made any attempt to move. Neither spoke, but both knew they were unsure whether to go forward or go back. While the sun burst into multicolored flames on the horizon, its last wave goodbye before surrendering to the night, Ma handed Ba a bowl of rice porridge. Neither of them spoke as they ate, both thinking about the goldfish man's words. Should they let Minli try to change their fortune? Should they stop looking and, like the goldfish man said, trust her? Ba sighed. Trying to find Minli is like trying to find the paper of happiness, Ba said aloud to himself. What paper of happiness? A voice said. Ba looked sharply around. Who had said that? He looked at Ma, but she continued to stir her porridge, obviously unaware. Ba shook his head. Perhaps his weariness was making him imagine things. Tell the story, old man. She's listening, the voice spoke again. She won't admit it, but she wants to hear it too. Ba looked around. It seemed like the voice was coming from the goldfish. He looked closely at the bowl. Was it the firelight that made it glow like that? The fish stared back at him calmly, as if waiting. So Ba took a deep breath and began the story. The story of the paper of happiness. Once, a long time ago, a family grew famous for their happiness. It seemed odd that this would happen, but they were truly an unusual household. Even though aunts and uncles, cousins and grandchildren lived together, there was never a cross word or unhappy noise. All were polite and thoughtful to each other. Even the chickens did not fight each other for feed. It was said even the babies were born smiling. Stories of their happiness spread like seeds in the wind, sprouting and blooming everywhere, until finally even young Magistrate Tiger heard of them. Even though he had just begun his position, this was before his son was born, the bellowing, roaring magistrate was already called Magistrate Tiger. Impossible, he scoffed. The stories are exaggerated. No family can be that happy. But even so, he was curious and sent an emissary to the family to observe. The emissary returned. Your Magnificence, it is just as the stories say, he said. I observed the family for a full moon, and not one sad or angry word was even whispered. The adults are loving and faithful. The children are gracious and respectful, and all honor the grandfather with an esteem that rivals the gods. Even the dogs do not bark, but wait patiently to be fed. The family circle is one of complete harmony. That's impossible, the magistrate said, astonished. But as he thought about it, the more he began to wonder. What was the secret that the family had? They must have some magical charm or hidden knowledge. And this began to irritate him. He began to covet the family's happiness. I am the magistrate, he thought. If there is a secret to happiness, I should have it. So he called his emissary to him and presented him with an empty, heavily encrusted chest and a company of soldiers. Return to the family, Magistrate Tiger ordered, and tell them I want the secret of their happiness put in this box. If they do not do so, have the soldiers destroy their home. The emissary did as he was told. When the troop of soldiers surrounded the house, the family looked fearful. But when the magistrate's demand was announced, the grandfather smiled. That's easy enough, he said. And he had the trunk brought into the house and returned it in moments. It is done. I've put the secret of our happiness inside the box, he said. You may have it. We hope it serves our magistrate well. The emissary was slightly surprised at the ease of his task, but could find no objection. So he turned the soldiers in the box around and began to travel back to the palace. The emissary knew the magistrate would be impatient for his return, so the soldiers marched through the night, with only the light of the moon to guide them. The treasure box lying on a platform carried by 4 men seemed to glow. However, as the ground grew rocky and steep, a sudden wind blew, like the mountain itself was yawning. One of the soldiers stumbled in the rising dust, and the box crashed to the ground. The lid of the box flew off, and like a freed butterfly, a single sheet of paper fluttered out. "Get it!" the emissary shouted at the soldiers. "Don't let lose the secret." But despite his yells, the paper seemed to be able to escape the soldiers' flailing arms. One soldier almost caught it, his very fingertips touching the page, but another sudden wind burst through the air and stole it away. Silently, the emissary and the soldiers watched the paper lift higher and higher in the night sky until it overlapped the moon and disappeared. The emissary had no choice but to return to the palace with an empty box. As he relayed the story, Magistrate Tiger, not surprisingly, was enraged. "You lost it? It was a paper?" the magistrate roared. "What was on it?" "Your magnificence," the emissary trembled. "As I felt the secret was only for your eyes, I did not read the paper before it was lost. However, as it was in the air, all could see that there was a single line of words on it." "What did the line say?" the magistrate demanded. "I don't know, magistrate," the emissary said, "but there was one soldier who almost caught it and was closest to it. Perhaps he was able to read the line." So the soldier was called in, and very humbly did he bow. He was little more than a boy, and had only recently joined the magistrate's army from a small, poor, faraway village. "You," the magistrate said, "you were the only soldier close enough to the paper to read the line. What did it say?" The boy flushed, and his head touched the floor as he bowed again. "Great magistrate, I am your poor servant," he said. "I was close enough to see the line on the page. However, I cannot read. I do not know what the line said." Magistrate Tiger scowled with irritation, and the emissary and the soldier shivered. "I did notice something," the soldier said. "What?" the magistrate demanded. "There was only one character on the page," the soldier said. "The line was one word written over and over again many times." "One word?" the magistrate snarled, and his anger seemed to burn deep in his eyes. "One word is the secret to happiness? It was a trick. The family must have thought they could deceive me. Emissary, gather all my troops. I personally will get to the secret of happiness and punish that family of lowly dogs." So the next day, the magistrate met with Magistrate Tiger, and his entire army prepared for destruction. The emissary led the way to the home of the happy family. But when they arrived, there was nothing there. No house, no chickens or sheep, no family. Instead, there was only a flat plain, as if the whole home had been scooped from the earth. Magistrate Tiger scowled at the blank ground with rage and vowed to punish the family for their disrespect. But while he glared, the wind blew and covered him with a grayish-green dust. As he stood like a green powdered statue, he felt as if the sky were laughing at him. So I think Minley, like the secret word in the paper of happiness, is not to be found. He glanced at Ma, and while she did not meet his gaze, she made no objection either. "And tomorrow," Ba continued gently, "we should return and wait for her to come." Again, Ma said nothing, but barely, perhaps only because he was looking for it. She nodded. Ba nodded back at her and quietly took some rice and dropped it into the fishbowl. Chapter 16. Feasting on juicy peaches, Minley and the dragon walked through the woods for many days. At night, when the dragon slept, Minley missed Ma and Ba. "But this is for our fortune, so they don't have to work so hard anymore," Minley told herself when she thought about the worry they must be feeling. "When I get back, Ba can rest, and Ma will never have to sigh again. They'll see." But the lonely moon never seemed to gaze comfortably down on her. One day, Minnie and the dragon came upon a body of water. In the distance, they saw the woods continue. As the compass pointed across the water, the dragon swam the inlet with Minnie on riding his back. How far do we have to go before we get to Never-Ending Mountain? The dragon asked. Well, Minnie said slowly, the fish said to go west until I reach the city of bright moonlight. From there, I'm supposed to find the guardian of the city. The guardian? Dragon said. Who is that? I'm not sure, Minnie said. The king of the city, I guess. Once I find him, I'm supposed to ask for the borrowed line, which, according to the fish, is something I'll need for Never-Ending Mountain. The borrowed line? The dragon asked. What is that? I don't know, Minnie said. The fish didn't tell me. You did not ask? The dragon almost stopped swimming in surprise. I didn't want to delay her, Minnie said. She was in a rush. The dragon shook his head and opened his mouth to say something when they both heard a strange sound next to them in the water. Aunt Jen, a voice said. Is it you? You came back like you said? Dragon and Minnie looked in the water and saw a large orange fish with a black fin swimming next to them. It looked a lot like Minnie's goldfish, but larger. I think you have me mixed up with someone else, Minnie said to the fish. I was speaking to the dragon, the fish said, but you must not be Aunt Jen either. Well, the dragon looked down at the fish with a wry smile. Either one of us would be a very strange relative to you, fish. Why do you think I was your aunt? Because Aunt Jen always said she would come back to us to show us that the Dragon Gate was real, the fish said. What do you mean, Minnie asked. Dragon Gate. What is that? The story of the Dragon Gate. Even though no fish has seen the Dragon Gate, we all know about it. Perhaps the story was told to us through the waves of water while we were eggs, or whispered to us by the roots of the lotus flowers. We all know that somewhere in one of the rivers of the land, there's a great and powerful waterfall. It is so high and so vast that it is as if water were gushing from a cut in the heavens. At the top of that waterfall, beyond anyone's view, is the Dragon Gate. The Dragon Gate is an entryway to the sky. It is old, so old that it's possible that the gray stone columns grew from the mountain it stands on. Wind and time have worn and smoothed the gate's tiered placards that barely show the old carving of the 5 colored clouds of heaven. Above the placards are the tiled arches, the same color as the misty sky. 999 small dragon ornaments perch on the ridges of those tiled roofs. Each one is intricately formed to the smallest detail, and even weathered as they are, the black pearl eyes still flash with a mysterious power. That's because these dragons are not mere decoration. They hold the secret to the Dragon Gate. For if ever a fish is able to swim up the waterfall and pass through the gate, the dragons will shake with power. As the fish goes through, the spirit enters the gate and bursts out of one of the ornaments, changing the fish into the form of a flying dragon. So the Dragon Gate transforms fish into dragons, a wish many of us hold deep in our hearts, the fish finished. None know who first told the story, or if it is even a story at all. But Aunt Jen was determined to find out. She said she was going to search all the rivers of the land for it, and if she found it, she would come back here as a dragon to show us. That's why I thought you might be her. Does your aunt look like you? Minnie asked, orange with a black fin. Yes, the fish said, but much smaller, the size of a copper coin. It doesn't seem likely that a fish that small could even swim up a waterfall, Dragon said. Even if she does find the right river, she might not be able to get to the gate. If there is a gate, Aunt Jen will find a way through it, the fish said. She's very wise. If you knew her, you'd understand. Maybe I do know her, Minnie said softly, thinking thinking hard about the goldfish he set free. Could it be that her goldfish, who had swum all the rivers except one, had been Jen, searching for the dragon gate? If you are not Aunt Jen, the fish said to the dragon, interrupting Minley's thoughts, why are you swimming across the river? Why don't you just fly? He can't fly, Minley answered for the dragon when she saw his discomfort. We are going to see the old man of the moon to ask him how to change that. But we have to get across the river to get to the city of bright moonlight first. Old man of the moon, the fish said, good luck. Finding him will be harder than finding the dragon gate. Minley and the dragon looked at each other and shrugged. But the city of bright moonlight is just past the forest over there, the fish continued. Swim over to this side and you can see it in the distance. And just as the fish said, Minley and the dragon saw the city. An enormous wall, like a giant patchwork of curtain of stone, surrounded the thousands of houses of the city. And almost glowing with splendor of its red columns and golden top, a palace stood up over the clusters of buildings in the far center, like a glorious beast floating above the waves of the scalloped rooftop tiles. Even from a distance, the city looked majestic. If you are stopping at the city of bright moonlight, the fish continued, I think dragons here should probably try to stay hidden. People of bright moonlight might be shocked to see a real dragon. The last dragon sighted was about 100 years ago, and it destroyed the king's father's palace in a city in the east. They might not take too kindly to you. That is good to know, Minley said. It might be better if I go into the city by myself. Yes, the dragon agreed. I can hide at the edge of the forest and wait for you. They close the wall at night, the fish said. So if you are in the city at night, you have to stay until morning. Do not worry, Dragon said to Minley. I will wait. Well, you're almost to land, the fish said, so I'll leave you. If you ever see another dragon, find out if it's my Aunt Jen. Hope you get to meet the old man of the moon. Good luck. Minley and the dragon watched the fish swim away. Then they made their way to the land and the city of bright moonlight.